be here. Yesterday morning, we knew that we had a green waste collection happening this coming week, so we decided that I'd get and trim some of the trees. Thank you. 40 on the right. 40 on the right. Thank you so much. And Catherine went off to a dental appointment, and the last thing she said to me was, "Don't fall off a ladder." Well, she should never have said that, because that's what I did. And I've got a pretty swollen and bruised ankle, but God is good, and the painkillers are working really well. So thank you for your prayers. If there happens to be a physiotherapist and a doctor, and afterwards you want to have a look at it, that's fine. Thank you very much. You got a few, have you? Yes. I'd be quite happy for a physio or someone to have a look at it, because it's pretty bruised. Thank you. But you were just singing, "Great is thy faithfulness." And what a wonderful verse that is when we think of the work of Mukti Mission and how it's been going for 134 years. Started by a little Indian woman 4 feet tall with a big heart, who started life as a Brahmin in the upper echelons of Indian society, and eventually she became a Christian, and she started this wonderful work which has been rescuing thousands of women and children in all of that time. And since 2016, Mukti Australia has also been partnering with Wings of Hope in Sri Lanka. So Mukti is all about empowering women and children. And our vision is to bring hope and a brighter future to the marginalised, vulnerable women and children in India and Sri Lanka. Ah, yes. This is a new set of slides. I'm just getting used to these ones. Here we go. All right. And so Mukti Australia supports and empowers orphaned and abandoned children, destitute women and children, widows, outcast women and children, unwed single mothers, women and children living with intellectual and physical disabilities, women and children living with mental illness, and women caught in the sex trade and their children. We'll just talk about that in a moment. But when Pendita Ramabhai started this work, she started by rescuing thousands of young widows who would otherwise have been forced to commit the practice of sati. That is, a young girl, maybe 12, 14 years of age, remarried to an older guy, maybe 3 times her age. And if he died for whatever reason, she was told, "You've jinxed him, and the only way to redeem yourself is to throw yourself on your husband's funeral fire, escort him to the next life as a servant." If she refused to do so, the only option was to become a slave to her in-laws and be fed on scraps. So Pandita Ramabhai rescued many, many of those widows over a number of years. And today, we're still in the business of rescuing and empowering women and children. And we seek to create opportunities for the disadvantaged women and children in India and Sri Lanka to lift themselves out of poverty and live meaningful lives of hope, safety, and empowerment. The 4 pillars of Mukti are education, health, skills training and empowerment, and holistic care. So Mukti India is providing Christ-centred homes where destitute women and children, irrespective of their background, are accepted, cared for, transformed, and empowered to live as what we call salt and light in the wider community. That's 134 years of caring. And despite what one little old lady asked me, I haven't met the founder. One of my favourite verses from the scriptures which really epitomise what we're all about is Psalm 82 verse 3, "Give justice to the weak and fatherless, maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute." And in Isaiah 1:17, "Learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, and plead the widow's cause." Very appropriate for Mukti. People say, what does Mukti mean? Mukti is originally a Sanskrit word and translates into several Indian languages as Mukti. It actually means freedom, liberation, salvation. What an appropriate word for the work that is being done in India and also now in Sri Lanka. I keep forgetting this new one, you have to keep going through like that. So there it is, Mukti means freedom and salvation. We have a number of schools right the way through from kindergarten through to the end of high school in both the Marathi medium language, that's the language spoken by the people of Maharashtra, and also English medium school. And the primary school and kindergarten, the kindergarten was actually started by Pandita Ramabhai and still part of our school system all these years later. And many of the kids that come to our schools come from outside, from impoverished areas, and they can't afford the things like their backpacks and their school pencils, all those sorts of things, so Mukti provides that for them. They get a really good education they might not get elsewhere, and we have many kids. In fact, across our schools, on any given school day, you see around 2,500, 3,000 kids coming in on buses and bicycles, and parents dropping them off, and so forth. And up until fairly recently, we only had girls in our high school, so the boys would come to the primary school, but when they finished primary school, they had to go off and find education somewhere else. We didn't have capacity for them. And many of the parents came to us and said, look, we really want our boys to be able to progress into high school, because otherwise they're going off to some other school, they're not getting the same standard of education. And so we've been able to listen to that, and in recent times we're building a whole lot of new classrooms. In fact, our end of financial year appeal this year, right now, is based on providing some extra classrooms. So if that's something you might like to think about, you might like to have a look at the brochures and things at the back there. So you can see the boys are pretty excited about getting into high school. And if you look at this class group there, you'll see the boys are a bit of a minority on the right-hand side. But as more and more boys graduate from primary school into a high school, there'll be more equal classes there. And I think the girls are pretty excited about having the boys in the classes too, by the way. So this is our junior college, and it goes up to year 12. This is an older photo of that, because in recent times we have already started building in a lot of classrooms in what was an undercroft. The government told us we needed to have it for parking for cars. No cars ever parked there, so we managed to finally build some classrooms in there. And we're also extending on the top and going another story. It's been built with the right kind of foundations, that we can do that. So that's all part of our end of financial year appeal to keep that going. And there's the English medium school. The English medium school means that the lessons are predominantly in English, and a lot of people like to send their kids from outside to the English medium school as fee-paying students, and that helps provide some of the income that comes to Mukti. During COVID, the income from that went down because the schools were closed. Income from other aspects was closed. People in churches didn't have any money. In fact, just before COVID, Mukti Mission was telling us in India that they were raising 60% of the funds they needed to run were raised in India. When COVID hit, it went down to about 20%. But now, by the grace of God, it's back up to 60% being raised in India, which we're pretty excited about. It means they're not just looking for handouts, they're actually doing whatever they can to make a difference. And then we have a special needs school. These are kids with Down syndrome, autism, other different needs, including visually impaired girls as well. And they just love having a really great time learning, and they love to. Here they're doing a bit of gardening, and you can see they're learning how to ride a wheelbarrow. And Priyanka is the lady that you see here. She is completing her post-graduation in Marathi and helping out at the special needs school that she's come through as a child, as a student. That's pretty exciting when you think about that. So then we have our visually impaired girls, those who either can't see at all or have very poor eyesight. And you can see that's a Braille book that they're reading there. That book probably represents something like the Gospel of Mark. So you can imagine how many books like that you need for a whole Bible, but that's pretty exciting. In fact, Pandita Ramabai found that there was no Braille in the Marathi language, so she invented it, as you do. And to say over 3,000 children attending our schools daily, with quality education being a priority. And then, of course, we've got our dear old ladies. Anyone for chai? But, of course, you'll probably recognise the lady on the right-hand side there. That's Lorraine Francis, our director for Mukti Mission. She and her husband, Anil, have been there for 34 years serving in that capacity. And by the way, when they first arrived at Mukti 34 years ago, they had one little baby girl. A little while later, they had a second child. And people said, oh, what did you have? They said, oh, we had another girl. People said, oh, sorry. And that is because if you had children in India, you have a girl, the girl will grow up and need to get married, and you as the parents will need to pay a dowry to the bridegroom's parents, and that can be very expensive. Sometimes people spend their whole life trying to earn enough money to have their daughter married off. So if you've got one, that's expensive. You've got two, that's expensive. If you've got three, and there have been a number of cases where that second or third child has been brought to Mukti because they cannot afford to keep another baby girl. Seems strange, but that's been the case. And there's our beautiful blind ladies. And one of the things I love to do when I take people to Mukti Mission is to take them to visit the blind ladies as they're weaving their baskets and singing beautiful songs of praise the Lord. And they say we can't see with our eyes, but we see with our hearts. And we thank God for our visually impaired ladies. We have a 30-bed hospital, which has recently had a lot of renovations and new roof put on it. And we've just recently been able to put some water catchment on the big hospital roof, and that was funded, a $100,000 project funded from right here in Western Australia, and we thank God for that. And also funded primarily from Western Australia just this last year has been a new ambulance. The old ambulance was pretty worn out and needed a lot of work, and so the new ambulance is a fully equipped life support ambulance. And it's around about $60,000, but we provided most of that, or a lot of that from Western Australia and then some from Victoria, and we're really thankful that's in place. But the old ambulance has been given a new lease of life to go out into the community to do community health and welfare work, and so thank God for that. And then we have the Dignity Training Centre, where girls and women are trained to do things like sewing and tailoring and making crafts, and they operate now under the title of Pearls of Mukti is the product that they sell. And we don't have very many products from India at the moment. It's been hard to get them with all the COVID situation, and most of the crafts you'll see on our stall at the moment have been made by volunteers like Catherine and others, but it all supports Mukti mission, so please have a look at the craft stall, and when we can we'll get more stuff from the Dignity Training Centre. And just quickly telling you about the place here in the Red Light District. Mukti has been reaching out over some period of time now to many of the young girls and young women who have been working in the Red Light District. And I think I can safely say in this audience that we have found that we've really had to rescue and help some of the children. The mothers have come to us and said, we don't want the kids there when we do business. And so we've got a night shelter many of the kids come to. We've also got a boys' home and just building a girls' home there at this place. It's the largest red light district in the whole of Maharashtra. Thousands and thousands of women caught in this trade. Many have been trafficked from other places like Bangladesh, and oftentimes, young girls have been told, you're a beautiful girl, you could do well in Bollywood, and so come with us, give us your daughter, we'll take her to Bollywood. But she doesn't go to Bollywood, she ends up in the red light district, and that's a pretty sad thing. But during COVID, we were able to do a lot of reaching out to many of these women and giving them possibly other opportunities of how to earn an income with dignity. And there's the Samely Education Centre, which is placed at that, which the kids are getting an education, which is a wonderful thing. And since 2016, we've been working with Wings of Hope in Sri Lanka, and the tourist brochures give you wonderful pictures of the tea plantations. Everybody loves to drink their tea and their chai, but these women who pick the tea leaves day in, day out, work long hours, and they're getting something like $4 a day for their very hard work, picking 2 huge bags of tea leaves, just taking off the little tiny tops of the tea leaves. And we recently, Rebecca Alexander, who runs Wings of Hope, she had a special day for the ladies where they were tea drinking. And many of the ladies said, we cannot afford to buy the tea that we pick. And some of them said this is the first time we've been able to drink the tea for ourselves. So you can imagine the poverty and the need in that situation where they're reaching out. This is where many of them live, and this is the accommodation line on the tea plantations. And so Wings of Hope has been reaching out. You can look at the state of some of those roofs. One of the things they've been able to do is to give a number of those families some special new sheets of corrugated iron to protect them from the terrible weather that often occurs there. But also we have the education centre there for the kids, and they're given a hearty meal, which is great. And you can see on the left-hand side there is what they used to be meeting in was an old converted cowshed. And just in last year we were able to complete the purchase of this building, which is now the Hatton Education Centre. And so the extracurricular schooling activity can happen there, and the work with the ladies. And you can see they're making meals, preparing meals for lots of needy families. And the Shine Women's Project is giving skills training for mums. They're made aware of their self-worth. They learn to make rugs from throwaway towels and bed sheets and to use themselves at home. And one lady said, now I can afford to make my own clothes for my children, my school uniforms, which I couldn't afford to pay for before. And just recently we had this program, we're feeding a family for just $26 a week with the basics of rice and oil and things that they need to make their meals. And what a huge difference that is. $26, it's hard to go and get a one-course meal at a restaurant in Australia for that, isn't it? We could feed a family for a week for just $26. You might be able to find some more information about that at the back. And then we have our sponsorship, and you'll see a few of the cards at the back there. If you'd like to sponsor someone, you can do it for $40 a month. It can be either one of the children or one of their grannies, and that's a program I like to call Sponsor a Granny. And Catherine's not part of that program, but it's a wonderful way to go. $40 a month, and you can write to them, you can have their photo and share your love with them. So $40 a month. And by the way, all donations to Mukti Mission are tax deductible. Makes a big difference as we're coming up to the end of the financial year. So please pray for us, and we really appreciate your prayers. And those of you who are already supporting Mukti, and I know some of you are, and we thank you for it. You've been supporting us as a church and supporting as individuals. Thank you for your support. If you'd like to get our newsletter, you might like to grab your phone out now and put that QR code up on it, and you can sign up for our newsletter to tell you what's happening. You can also do that afterwards. So thank you very much. It's lovely to be able to share with you, and thank you for your support for Mukti Mission in India and for Wings of Hope in Sri Lanka. Thank you.